Okay, I have an idea here written down. I'm not exactly sure what I meant by it, but it's about how appeals to authority are, let's say, in as far as we can consider them a problem, they are the same kind of problem, I feel, regardless of where they occur, really. Like, for example, appeals to authority in. Okay, I think it's because in each case, there are experiences that are being had by people that then can be appealed to by experience. But it's experience of a different kind, experience of rational um, or sort of knowledge. Let's say it's knowledge that is arrived through reason, and knowledge that is arrived through personal relationship or faith, let's say, but personal relationship with God, with the divine. And in both cases, you can have these sorts of appeals to experience, to authority. I mean, where you say, "Oh, um, I, as someone who is able to know things through reason and to know that 2 + 2 is 4, whatever, still, um, I am told, or I am unable to reach the kinds of knowledge that people who have some sort of a deeper relationship with reason have reached, right? There's people who have reached these sorts of relationships with huge equations that I would be unable to. And so if they tell me that through their deep relationship to reason and to deep equations, they've reached a certain conclusion, a certain piece of an idea, I'm like, okay, well, I'll take your word for it, right? Um, and and that can just whatever, that can have bad or good experiences depending on what you want. And also there can be the same thing, but where the knowledge isn't reached through reason but through this personal experience, right? You can be like, oh, I've meditated and I've meditated for a long time, and I've had these sort of this knowledge acquired through this personal experience of meditation or of praying or whatever. But someone has told me, oh, but this person has meditated a lot more, or they just have a deeper, more personal, profound relationship with the divine, and they have reached this specific conclusion or idea, this conclusion, and they tell it to you, and you're like, okay, well, wow, I don't know. I haven't meditated to that level of depth, so I don't know, and just take your word for it. And in both cases, I think, because sometimes this is spoken of as sort of unambiguous and unambiguously bad, and I think that no, there are good and bad things to it. Like, for example, because in both cases you can still sort of, and obviously variations on these themes happen with all sorts of things, with basketball, cooking, whatever, like different kind of skills, practices, knowledges, and things like that, where some people have experiences or knowledge of these practices that are sort of deeper than your own in some way, right? An experienced cook can be like, oh, if you add a little bit of hot water to this dish now, at exactly this moment, it'll have such an effect in the future. And you're like, oh, okay, I have no idea how to know that. I don't have the sort of deep experience you have cooking. And like with most things, it can be abused. But the thing is that that's the whole point, right? Most things can be abused, you know. Uh, sure, someone can be like, "Oh, I have deep knowledge of the universe, and you should do as I tell you," or whatever. Like, well, like it depends. Like, um, I don't know, maybe not. You know, uh, but at the same time, you can also have the experience of like, I don't know, meditating and finally sort of experiencing something that that people have been telling you on books for a long time. You know, experienced meditators, let's say, teachers have been talking about this and writing about this in books, and suddenly at some point you sort of experience it for yourself. You have some sort of an inkling as to like, oh, okay, yeah, there is some sort of, or you can kind of connect of like, okay, I can tell that this level of faith that I have, or this level of relationship with the world, with the divine, whatever, is is something that I'm having. I can tell that that's happening for me, and that that's real. Like I have this faith in it, and other people who've talked about this exact same kind of faith also say that there's other stuff that is real that I have no knowledge of. Well, mm, like the same, like sometimes you get inklings as to like, oh, okay, I think that this person seems to be saying things that are in concordance with what I've experienced, and therefore I can extrapolate that probably or maybe, uh, right? That's the thing. I choose to trust in them or not, and the same with reason. You could be like, oh, I've solved complicated things with reason and equations, but there's people who've solved even more complicated ones, and I don't understand what they're saying, but because I've solved my level equations, I can kind of trust, I decide to trust that they have solved their equations correctly. I will never verify for myself, but I just trust it. Obviously, also with computers and stuff, I guess that it makes some of that stuff also possible, verifying this kind of thing. Mm, but still, let's say, in both cases, there is a level of experience that you've had that is required for you to know how you're going to interact with those statements. You know, like, are you going to believe in them? And of course, in both cases, there's also sort of like the philosophical implications of it, which go beyond experience. It's, for example, the ethics, or something like that. Like, someone may tell you that, oh, I've decided that it is, that this is the way the world works, and therefore you should do this or you should do that. That is a little trickier. Again, as I sort of tried to express in the previous videos, because there is some way in which will and what you want and what you don't want, I think, has to do with politics and not with how you're going to describe the world. And therefore, this knowledge that you've acquired, it may be knowledge through faith, it may be knowledge through not freedom, through reason, but it's still knowledge. It's knowledge of the world, you know, knowledge of reality, of what's real. But this knowledge doesn't have much to do with what your will is, you see. So any extrapolation from knowledge towards what it is that you should do is, I think, dubious, suspicious. I don't think there's any reason to trust it. Basically, like, if someone, recommend something in a good faith way, then that's just an interpersonal relationship you have with someone. If someone recommends you do this or do that, sure, you can, and they may even recommend it, like, again, they may even recommend it, let's say, based on their experience. Like, someone may say, oh, I spent so many years studying this and that effect of my behavior on the world, and I kind of reached the conclusion that I think it's actually a good idea to do this. Well, you can buy that argument, you can believe in it, you can try it out for yourself, you can put trust in it in some way, but it isn't a direct consequence of the knowledge. Basically, it's not a direct consequence of the knowledge. The knowledge is separate from that idea. Yeah, okay, thanks.